Amazing discovery. Unseen black maid saves lost girl, unveiling a billionaire's shocking secret. Ava scrubbed the Italian marble floors of Mr. Hathaway's mansion, the weight of her uniform clinging to her like a thick fog. Each stroke of her brush was accompanied by a wave of longing, a yearning for the laboratory she had envisioned herself in since childhood. She had devoured science books, dreaming of breakthroughs and innovations. Yet here she was, a mere maid in an expansive castle of wealth and privilege, cleaning up after a family that held so many secrets of their own. The sprawling mansion felt like a prison sometimes, its high ceilings whispering of grandeur above her, while her heart sank lower with every passing day. Every corner she cleaned reminded her of the societal expectations that constrained her dreams. She was treated as invisible, not because she wasn't intelligent, but simply because of the uniform she wore, a mere maid. In a small, neglected room far from the lavish salon, dust clung to corners like thoughts unspoken. As she picked up stray papers, curiosity pulled her towards an old trunk tucked in the shadows. Keys of fate seemed to jingle in her mind. After prying it open, her breath caught. Inside lay a diary, its pages yellowing and faded, a girl's joy trapped in ink. As she turned the pages, she felt an inexplicable connection with Lila, a young girl who had vanished from this town years ago. Lila's tales bared her soul, revealing struggles with poverty and whispers of heartbreak that resonated with Ava's own dreams deferred. In each heartfelt entry, Ava found echoes of her own battle against societal walls. It was haunting, yet comforting. Someone in history had felt just as lost. Yet as she delved deeper into Lila's life, a chill crept into Ava's heart. The revelations painted a picture of a family hiding dark truths, secrets woven into the fabric of wealth. What if Lila's disappearance was tied to these very walls? Ava's chest tightened, torn between loyalty and the weight of justice. Mr. Hathaway had been her employer, and, in his own way, a protector during rough times. But could her silence protect Lila? As Ava wrestled with her morals, Lila's spirit seemed to call to her, a silent plea for recognition, for justice. She paced the room, her breath quickening as uncertainty enveloped her. Should she shatter the fragile balance of comfort in her life for the sake of someone whose cries had long since been silenced? The very thought twisted her stomach, grappling her heart with fear and guilt. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me, in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The next day, as Ava approached Mr. Hathaway's study, her hands trembled. This room, packed with accolades, proud portraits, and trophies, spoke volumes of success and, equally, of hypocrisy. She felt generations of expectations pulling her down, and she was just a fleeting thought in his opulent world. Their eyes locked. The unspoken weight of decades fell hard. In a heartbeat, everything felt suspended. Would she expose the threads of deception that swirled around him, or be consumed by her own silence? The question gnawed at her insides, each beat echoing like a ticking clock. She had stumbled onto a truth too potent to ignore, yet too dangerous to confront. With a racing mind and a resolve welling inside her, Ava found herself standing at the brink of one of the most important decisions of her life. Would she wrestle with revelations unknown, or succumb to a past that couldn't be changed? The air thickened, pregnant with possibility, as Ava braced for what lay ahead, the haunting tales of those silenced veering dangerously close to the surface. Ava inhaled sharply, the moment stretching out like an eternity. Mr. Hathaway's eyes bore into her, as if unearthing the thoughts she grappled to conceal. A lifetime of hiding behind her uniform crashed against her burgeoning sense of agency. Was she the discovered or the discoverer? The edges of her courage felt raw, and standing in that grand study was akin to standing on the precipice of a chasm she needed to leap into. She thought of Lila's diary, a bridge between her mundane world and the haunting whispers of a girl who had vanished into obscurity. If the truth was deep within these walls, who was she now? A no-name maid or an emerging force of justice? The contradiction churned in her stomach. If she chose to remain silent, would she be complicit in Lila's lost dreams? "Do you need something, Ava?" Mr. Hathaway's voice sliced through the fog of her thoughts. Ava jerked slightly, her heart pounding. She could sense the anticipation in his demeanor. Every second counted, and she was running out of time to decide. Should she speak the words that could unveil a world of lies, or retreat back into the anonymity of her existence? The choice felt daunting, an unfamiliar path unrolling before her. "No, sir." The words escaped her lips instinctively, the voice of her past bubble-wrapping her courage. But within her chest, an ember ignited. Perhaps it was the spirit of Lila urging her on. With a trembling resolve, she swallowed hard, deciding the next moments would either reinforce her insignificance or mark the beginning of something greater. "Actually, sir." Mr. Hathaway's brows lifted slightly, his attention sharpening as Ava's heart raced. She let the silence hang heavy, every second amplified by the weight of unspoken truths. She had to gather her thoughts. This wasn't merely about her dreams anymore. It was about illuminating others' forgotten shadows. "Did you know Lila?" She hesitated. A thread of doubt entwined with determination and found its way into her spoken words. "Did you know Lila once lived here? I found her diary." The flicker in Mr. Hathaway's eyes shifted rapidly, revealing a glimmer of panic. "That's an old story. We don't discuss it." Ava sensed the tightrope she walked. She chose her next words carefully, knowing this was the crux of her emerging identity. "But discussing it could help me understand her, to learn what happened, to ensure it doesn't happen again." For the first time, Mr. Hathaway's facade cracked. "Ava, you're overstepping. You shouldn't associate yourself with such matters." The dismissal felt like a thunderclap. "Why?" she pressed, emboldened by her own audacity. "Because I'm a maid? My position doesn't limit my capacity to know the truth." With each word, Ava felt her former self melting away, replaced by the fierce determination to uncover the secrets buried beneath the superficial layers of wealth. Just as she thought she might buckle beneath the weight of the confrontation, steadiness surged within her. "Ava, drop this. It's for your own good." He stepped closer, lowering his voice, yet the undertone was edged with something darker. If she turned away now, she would only confirm all the fears she had nurtured, fears that her voice did not matter. Ava's heart thudded wildly, conflicting thoughts battling for supremacy in her mind. She was perilously close to a precipice, but there was strength in her vulnerability, power in her determination. "I can't," she stated firmly, shaking her head. "Not when there are unanswered questions. Not when Lila deserves acknowledgement." His demeanor shifted, a storm brewing in his gaze. This was no longer just about Lila. It was about the very possibility of change igniting within Ava. The air felt electric, the stakes rising. She now stood on the edge of revelations that could shake the very foundation of what she knew. Would she risk everything to pursue the truth, or retreat into obscurity, forever haunted by Lila's voice urging her to act? Ava took a deep breath, gathering her courage for the uncertain road ahead. The conversation would come to a head, her lingering choice waiting to be made, but it would demand everything of her. Feeling the weight of her decision rising, she steeled herself. The time had come to face not only the truth of Lila's fate, but the truths about her own worth. A tempest of self-discovery unfolding even as shadows swirled around her. As she braced for the confrontation, the haunting echo of Lila's pleas resonated within her. The moment of reckoning was upon them. Would she uncover a horrifying truth, or lay bare her own heart? And with that question lingering, she stepped into the unknown. The silence hung thick in the air, heavy with the unsaid and the uncharted paths that lay ahead. Ava's eyes locked onto Mr. Hathaway's, hers mind racing with the implications of her previous words. Each heartbeat pounded in her ears, a stark reminder of the stakes at play. She was no longer just a nameless maid, but a catalyst poised between two worlds, the stark reality of her existence and the shadowy, unanswered questions surrounding Lila's fate. "Ava, you don't want to pursue this," he said, his voice uncharacteristically low, laced with a subtle urgency. The protective barrier around his persona momentarily stripped, revealing a glimpse of something darker lurking beneath his polished demeanor. Her resolve wavered, but only for a split second. "No, Mr. Hathaway," she countered, a newfound conviction replacing her earlier hesitation. "I want to know the truth, not just for Lila, but for myself." Those words reverberated within her, awakening a deeper recognition of her own identity amidst the oppressive weight of servitude. He regarded her with a mixture of disbelief and disdain, yet she saw fleeting concern in his gaze. It emboldened her even more. "You believe that keeping secrets protects everyone involved, but it's the opposite. Secrets suffocate. And if I'm going to find my place in this world, I need to understand the past." In that moment, a flicker of understanding passed between them, an invisible thread connecting their disparate experiences. Ava's life had been a tapestry woven from silence, but she realized she was ready to pick at those threads, to unravel the story interlaced with her own. "Lila deserves justice," she uttered softly, allowing the weight of the declaration to settle in the air. "And whether you admit it or not, so do you." The sharpness of her words surprised even her, revealing a fierce strength she hadn't known resided within. Mr. Hathaway's eyes narrowed. "You're treading on dangerous ground," he warned, stepping further into her unyielding space. The atmosphere thickened, tension spiraling until it felt suffocating. "This is not a game to be played lightly. You have no idea what you're risking." "But maybe I do," she countered, pride swelling in her chest. If she stood back now, she would lose the chance to step into her own light, and the flames of Lila's suppressed cries would forever haunt her. His jaw tightened, and for a fleeting moment, Ava caught a glimpse of vulnerability behind his stern mask. What dark truths could lie behind his refusal to discuss Lila's disappearance? Was it guilt? Fear? The slightest quiver of doubt danced in her mind, and she seized upon it like a lifeline. "Ava," he began, but she cut him off, emboldened by the realization that she held power in this conversation. "No more evasions, Mr. Hathaway. I will not remain in the shadows of your world any longer. What happened to Lila? Who was she really? What lies beneath this facade you've maintained so tightly?" The fury that ignited behind his eyes startled her, yet it only fueled her determination. Ava stood firm, anchored in a burgeoning self-awareness, one that allowed her to confront not only him, but all. The invisible chains that had bound her. He inhaled sharply, as if weighing his next move. "You only see fragments," he said finally, tone cautious yet edged with defensiveness. "You're stepping into a territory that could bring you peril." His warning spun Ava's thoughts into a vortex. Danger had never frightened her the way being voiceless did. If she could carve a path to understanding, then she could demonstrate her worth and perhaps break free from the roles imposed upon her. "I refuse to stay quiet when it comes to someone's life," she asserted, defiance anchoring her words. If being seen and heard means risking myself, then I'll take the leap." Mr. Hathaway's expression shifted as he studied her, a combination of disbelief and reluctant admiration flashing in his gaze. This girl, this maid who had always been invisible, she was finally shedding her layers. His lips curled into a contemplative frown. "Very well," he finally said, a smirk of begrudging respect glimmering briefly. "But know this, digging into the past has its price. Are you willing to pay it?" For the first time, Ava didn't shy away from a challenge. Instead, fire coursed through her veins. "I'll pay whatever it costs. I owe it to Lila and to myself." As he turned away, concealing whatever turmoil swirled behind his eyes, a new sense of adrenaline surged within her. She felt like a ship suddenly unmoored, a vessel of intention as she steeled herself for whatever lay ahead. With each step she took away from the confrontation, Ava's heart raced with the thrill of newfound purpose. She was no longer just chasing shadows. She was embracing the urgency of uncovering the truth, and with it, her own identity. Yet, as she exited the study, doubts crawled back into her mind. Had she just crossed a line she could never uncross? Was she prepared for the storm she had invited? As the door closed behind her, the weight of her choices pressed down, and uncertainty intertwined with exhilaration, a heady mix of fear and hope igniting the next chapter of her life. And with that, she began to plan. What would be her next move? Who could she trust in this quest for answers? Ava slid through the dimly lit corridors of the estate, her heart racing, yet her mind calculating. Every brush of fabric against her skin reminded her of the roles she'd played and the chains she now sought to break. The confidence she had gained in that moment with Mr. Hathaway bolstered her as she navigated the sprawling mansion. Fresh resolve pulsed within her. She would not just uncover Lila's truth, she would disclose her own. There had to be resources at her disposal, allies she hadn't yet identified. The house was large, luxurious, yet suffocating, holding more secrets than openly shared laughter. Ava lingered outside the elegant kitchen, where the warmth from the room spilled out into the chilly hallway, hesitant but needing direction. Inside, the other maids were gossiping, theirs laughter punctuating the air, blissfully unaware of the darkness Ava now carried. As she stepped in, their chatter halted, replaced with sidelong glances, questions unasked radiating from them. The weight of being different had always isolated her, yet today she felt oddly resolved to shift that paradigm. "Hey, Ava, where'd you run off to earlier? You looked serious," Clara, a fellow maid, quipped cheerily, attempting to deflect the unspoken tension. Ava's mind raced through its responses, considering how much to reveal. I was talking to Mr. Hathaway about matters of the house," she answered, testing the waters of her newfound confidence. A raised brow from Clara signaled interest. "You? Talking to him? That's a first." Funny, Ava forced a smile, a plan for the conversation crystallizing. She needed leverage, and if that meant stitching together a rapport with the staff, then she would. "I could use your help. I think there's more to Lila's disappearance than meets the eye, and I think some of you might know things." The room fell silent, tension intertwining with the air. Clara exchanged glances with the others, Yvonne, a senior maid, crossing her arms, and Jenna, her expression hardened with firm disapproval. "That's dangerous talk, Ava. You don't know the storms you're inviting," Yvonne warned, her voice measured, yet edged with concern. Ava squared her shoulders. "Maybe I'm willing to weather the storm. I need to find out the truth for Lila's sake, and my own." The bravery that had surged in her earlier thickened into purpose. Knowing the stakes, she had to play this right. "We can't get involved," Clara murmured, unease flickering in her eyes. "It could cost us our jobs, or worse." "Then what are we if we let fear govern us?" Ava challenged lightly, deliberately lifting the collective gaze. What if uncovering this truth is the only way to unshackle ourselves? Yvonne frowned, but Ava saw a hint of internal struggle as the conflict within her peers played out. The risk was palpable, and her heart hammered loudly against her ribcage. But clarity blazed through the fog of uncertainty. She knew her purpose. Have you ever thought about how powerless we are simply watching from the sidelines? Ava pressed on. If we don't stand together now, what difference will it make tomorrow? Whispers cascaded around the kitchen like ripples in water. Clara remained silent, yet Yvonne finally leaned forward, her voice softening. Think carefully, Ava. If you decide to pursue this, no, it means no turning back. There are consequences. I understand, Ava replied, heat pooling in her chest. But isn't it time we reclaim our truths? Slowly, Clara's anxious expression shifted, her eyes brightening with reluctant admiration. You might be right. Moments passed like anxious breaths, the atmosphere thickening even further. They were on the precipice of a choice. Their unity could drown in silence or emerge as a whisper of courage against the tide of oppression. Let me know if you decide to dig deeper, Jenna finally spoke, nodding slowly. Just be careful. With that small concession, Ava felt a glint of hope igniting within her, the raw embers of alliance kindling. If they could unite their knowledge, then she might not only restore Lila's legacy, but also reshape her own narrative. Now, with an unexpected team forming at her side, Ava realized she had ignited a spark that might just illuminate the darkest corners of their lives. But as she stepped away from the kitchen, a gnawing dread settled in her gut, a foreboding whisper that what they were stepping into could be far more perilous than they understood. And as the shadows lengthened around her, Ava pondered the depths of the danger ahead. What secrets lay buried, waiting to be unearthed? She needed to make plans, strategize her next move, or risk being engulfed in the very shadows she sought to dispel. Who else could she trust among her newfound allies? Would loyalty sway in the face of intimidation, or would it strengthen their resolve? The stakes were higher than ever, and the pursuit of the truth was just beginning to unfold, each question opening up further layers of deceit. Ava stepped away from the kitchen, her mind buzzing with possibilities and the weight of responsibility heavy on her shoulders. The lingering conversations of her fellow maids echoed in her mind, but she had a clearer path in front of her now. This wasn't just about Lila anymore. It was about finding her place within the oppressive confines of the estate and reshaping the narrative that had defined her for far too long. She moved quickly through the corridor, her intent sharpened. Her plan was brewing, and she would need to galvanize her small team. She had felt the flicker of hope when Jenna had shown a willingness to join her. That had been her first real taste of solidarity. The other maids were bound by fear, but Ava knew she had seized an opportunity, a moment that could shift everything. As she reached the back staircase leading to the upper quarters, she stopped abruptly, her heart pounding. Could she really trust Clara, Yvonne, and Jenna? Their lifelines hung precariously in a balance of risk and reward. Ava inhaled deeply, the musty scent of wood mingling with the fresh fabric of her uniform. The contours of the house defined her life, and yet they now felt malleable, a canvas waiting for her brushstrokes. She needed to gather information, ask the right questions. The estate itself had been carefully constructed with secrets embedded in its very framework. She approached Jenna's room, fear giving way to determination. Each knock conjured visions of discovery. What if these walls could shout the hidden secrets of the wealthy? Jenna? Ava called quietly, tapping lightly at the door. She was met with a slight pause before the door opened. "What's up?" Jenna asked, her eyes carrying an unspoken understanding of the weight they were now carrying together. "I need to talk strategy," Ava replied, stepping inside and closing the door behind her. "I want to draw out information about Lila, but we need a plan that won't backfire. We need to know what we're getting ourselves into." Jenna nodded solemnly as she perched on the bed, her fingers entwined anxiously. I've heard whispers from the kitchen, some old tales about the family, but it's risky to dig too deep. What's the worst that could happen? Ava challenged gently, her voice steady. What if we can turn the tables? This could affect all of us, not just Lila. We might find we have more power than we realize. Ava, if we expose something untouchable, you can't know how ruthless these people can be. Jenna's voice trembled with the weight of caution, and Ava could see the flicker of fear in her eyes. But beneath that fear lingered the same flame Ava had ignited, a yearning for freedom. You're right, Ava said, leaning closer to Jenna. But if we don't take that risk, we'll be stuck in this dark place forever. What if this moment could be the catalyst for change, not just for ourselves, but for everyone? A moment of hesitation hung in the air like smoke before Jenna finally exhaled, her demeanor shifting. I'll help, but we need names, stories, anything we can get our hands on. If we're going to do this, we need every detail ready for when the house pushes back. Ava's resolve solidified, embers of hope igniting into a blazing determination. Let's swipe the old ledger in the library tomorrow. If we can get a hold of it, we might find more than we bargained for. Jenna's face brightened with intrigue as they plotted. The plan was ambitious, and that thrill pulsed through Ava, bringing clarity and purpose. This was her moment of transformation, not just for herself, but potentially for all the other women tethered to this mansion. As they discussed their next steps, Ava felt energy surrounding them, a collective whisper of empowerment that began coursing through the very foundations of the estate. There was courage in numbers, but courage alone was not enough. The days that followed would test their resolve, and Ava's decision to act could fall apart under scrutiny. Could they really break open the shadows? What condemnation might they face from the very people they served? Would their unity hold, or would fear scatter them like leaves in a storm? As her heart raced with questions, Ava sensed the walls closing in, constraining the freedom she was chasing. She had ignited a spark, and there would be no reconsideration. But could she lead her allies through the maze of lies and emerge unscathed? With her path finally illuminated, Ava needed to remain vigilant for the hidden dangers lurking amidst her awakening. It was only the beginning of their journey, and she wasn't about to let it end in silence. Tomorrow was the start of a confrontation, a chance to stay tethered to her emerging truth. Would the revelations heat their ambitions or freeze them in their fear? Ava woke early, the faint light of dawn seeping through her window, illuminating the dim corners of her small room. The day ahead felt electric with opportunity, but beneath the excitement lay an undercurrent of anxiety. She rose and dressed methodically, the crispness of her uniform a reminder of both her role and her resolve. Each button fastened represented a step closer to unearthing the truth. She met Jenna in the kitchen, their whispered planning illuminated by the warm glow of the rising sun. The other maids went about their chores, ignorant of the revolutionary undercurrent brewing in their midst. Ava's chest tightened as she observed them. This division was their reality. Yet as she made eye contact with Jenna, she felt an unspoken bond form between them, an alliance forged in shared beliefs. "What time are you thinking for the library?" Jenna asked, her voice barely above a whisper as she stirred a pot of oatmeal. "Early. The family's usually at breakfast by 8. We need to be in and out before they realize anything's up," Ava replied, a sense of clarity sharpening her usual jitters. There was too much at stake to hesitate. "Let's grab the ledger first. If we find anything, we can make a list of potential leads to pursue." Ava nodded, but even as she spoke, doubt began creeping in. The ledger was notoriously well protected, stowed away in a locked cabinet. This wasn't just a simple theft, it was an act of rebellion. Every nerve in her body told her to think twice, yet, guided by the strength that had started to build within her, she pressed on. Failure would be a step backward, buried deep in fear and helplessness. The clock in the hallway chimed 7, reverberating through her. She felt time tightening like a noose as they slipped away from the kitchen, exchanging furtive glances with other maids who seemed oblivious to their purpose. Each step toward the library felt both exhilarating and terrifying, a dance between courage and recklessness. Arriving at the library door, Ava paused, heart racing. The air was thick with tension, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Was it wise to continue? The estate's secrets could bite back, harshly. "Do you want me to check for people?" Jenna suggested, sensing Ava's hesitation. "No, let's just go. If we're quiet, they won't notice us," Ava said. It was a calculated risk, a reflection of her newfound determination. She turned the knob slowly, grateful it creaked only slightly, and entered the dimly lit room. Dust motes floated through the air, untouched books lined the shelves, and there, in the corner, loomed the cabinet housing the old ledger. A gust of determination pushed her forward, the very act of movement reducing her anxiety to a manageable hum. "Stand guard," Ava whispered, glancing back at Jenna. She nodded and positioned herself near the door, scanning the hallway. As Ava approached the cabinet, the weight of her family's legacy hung over her. In this moment, she was not just a maid. She was a seeker of truth, a catalyst for potential change. Her fingers brushed the cool surface of the cabinet, feeling around for the lock. She reached for a hairpin, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. Moments later, it slid open with a satisfying click. Inside, the ledger sat, thick and leather-bound, exuding an air of mystery. She retrieved it carefully, heart racing as she tucked it under her arm, a treasure of sorts. "We've got it," she said breathlessly. But just as they turned to slip out, footsteps echoed in the corridor. Ava's pulse quickened, tension clutching at her throat. There was no turning back now. The thrill was intoxicating, but the risk was real, a gamble that tested her limits and commitment. "Do you hear that?" Jenna's voice trembled, eyes wide as she pressed closer to the wall. "I know," Ava replied, scanning the doorway. The thrill of their defiance mingled with the fright of getting caught. Would their ambitions be enough to shield them from the consequences? "This is just the beginning," Ava said, gripping the ledger tightly. They were unearthing a darkness hidden beneath the luxurious facade of the estate, and she felt the pull of destiny. She would see this through, no matter the cost. With a swift glance back at the door, Ava's resolve hardened. Let's go. But deep down, she questioned what shadows awaited them on the other side of their bold decision. Would they uncover weapons meant to protect the powerful? Or would they unearth a truth that toppled their very lives? Only time would tell. Ava's heart thundered in her chest as they froze in place, the ledger clutched tightly against her. Every instinct screamed at her to flee while she still could, yet a magnetic pull urged her to stay. They had come too far to turn back now. As the footsteps grew louder, she exchanged a look with Jenna, both uncertain but resolute. "Let's go," she whispered, and they slipped into the shadows of the library, the small window of time urging them forward like a breath held just before release. The hushed intimacy of the library felt suffocating as they skirted around the heavy furniture, careful not to disturb the stillness that enveloped them. Each step mustered not just physical stealth, but demanded a nerve she hadn't known existed. Their breaths were synchronized, an unspoken pact of courage and urgency. Each heartbeat whispered an affirmation of their determination to face the truth, whatever it entailed. As they reached the door, Ava glanced back at the cabinet. Barely a moment, yet it felt monumental. The ledger was a key, one that could unlock revelations buried beneath the opulence surrounding them. Would this act mark the defining moment of her life, a chisel against the marble of fate? Outside the library, the corridor appeared deceptively calm. Light spilled through the windows, illuminating the dust motes floating in the air, but there was an unsettling stillness. Who could step in at any moment? The thrill of defiance made her feel alive, yet she was acutely aware of the danger that loomed. Where to now? Jenna's voice broke the silence, tinged with anxiety as they moved down the hallway, keeping close to the wall. "We need to find someplace hidden to look at this," Ava murmured, her mind racing. The ledger contained more than just names and dates. It held secrets that could shatter the tranquil veneer of the estate. Knowledge was power, and for the first time she felt the intoxicating taste of agency. They darted into an unused pantry, the air cooler against their heated skin. Jenna leaned against the door, breathing heavily, as Ava flipped open the ledger's cover, the aged paper cracking beneath her fingers. The intricately crafted handwriting sent a shiver down her spine. This was history caught in ink, the whispers of the past echoing through the years. As she flipped through the pages, a sense of urgency settled over her. Each entry revealed transactions and records that painted a darker picture than she had ever imagined. "Look at this, charitable donations, but many are linked to people with questionable ties," she whispered. The implications hung thick in the air, an avalanche waiting to be set loose. "Are you sure we can trust what this says?" Jenna asked, her focus narrowed, brow furrowed. Ava hesitated. "We don't know the full story yet, but it's a start. It could lead us to something much bigger." The dialogue bantered in her mind, each argument reviewed, each perspective weighed. Bridging the gap between doubt and belief had always been a discomforting journey, the reluctance of an employee versus the conviction of a seeker. Suddenly, an ominous creak echoed from the hallway, tensing the air around them. Ava's pulse leaped as fear gripped her. The stakes were rising. She was navigating an unpredictable path where the boundaries of her reality began to blur. "Someone's here," Jenna whispered, eyes darting toward the door. Ava swallowed hard. "We need to go, now," she urged, her voice tinged with urgency. They slipped the ledger back under her arm, the weight of revelation heavy and daunting. Just as they turned toward the back door, a figure emerged. It was one of the estate's staff, their gaze piercing with suspicion. Ava felt her stomach drop. This was the moment that could define their rebellion, but would it also seal their fate? "Stop right there," the voice rang out, and Ava's body responded before her mind could catch up. Panic surged through her. Could her instincts propel her forward, drive her to take that risk, the risk that cradled the potential for change? Gripping the ledger tightly, she exchanged a charged glance with Jenna. This was no longer about simply uncovering the truth. It had transformed into a life-altering pursuit, a mission that could shatter everything she once knew. Without further deliberation, Ava lunged for the exit, propelled by an unfolding destiny and a singular question echoing in her mind. What truths awaited them outside? As Ava bolted through the door, adrenaline surged through her veins. The sharp corners of the estate's labyrinthine layout blurred as she and Jenna dashed for safety. Every sound, the slamming of a door, the rustling of papers, seemed capable of unveiling them. An electric tension crackled in the air. It felt like stepping into the eye of a storm, where clarity and chaos intertwined. "Which way?" Jenna gasped, skidding to a halt as raw urgency coursed through them. Ava's mind raced, scanning her memory of the estate's layout. Where would they be able to hide? "Through the garden," Ava pointed, the idea crystallizing as she remembered the overgrown hedges along the side. It was risky. Shadows could conceal them or trap them, but their choice was made by the echoing command from behind. Ava sprinted forward, Jenna close on her heels. Just as they rounded a corner, the main hallway lay ahead, bathed in bright light from dusty chandeliers. It seemed incongruous, a stark contrast to the darkness that loomed within her mind. They slipped past rooms filled with muted opulence, the faint scent of polishing wax overwhelming her senses. The lush garden loomed near, a green oasis pulsating with nature's unyielding vitality amidst the oppressive wealth of the estate. Once outside, freedom hung tantalizingly close, yet Ava felt the weight of the ledger as if it were a leaden stone on her chest. With every second, her resolve fluttered. What had they truly uncovered? Hurtling past the flowers, they ducked behind a towering hydrangea, their bodies trembling with the thrill of escape. The ledger rested in her hands, its contents now a lifeline that tethered her to uncertainty and potential truths. "Did you see their face?" Jenna asked, attempting to catch her breath, eyes wide with fervor. "They know something is off. What if they—" "I know," Ava interrupted, the urgency in her voice echoing her internal struggle. Even in the safety of the garden, she confronted an unsettling realization. This was only the beginning, a flicker of illumination within a vast darkness. The ledger contained information that required digging, not just as comrades, but as individuals stepping into a realm beyond anything she'd experienced before. "Let's look closer," Ava said, her voice steadying. The weight of the moment pressed on her. This was the juncture where fear could either consume her or propel her. Transfixed by the entries, she opened the ledger, allowing its secrets to absorb her. With each line of ink, the narrative unraveled. Names and dates merged into a twisted history that rippled with malice. "No way," she whispered, her finger tracing a particularly notorious name, one she had heard only in hushed conversations among the staff. The revelation felt like ice in her veins. Who would risk their reputation for this? "Can we really use this?" "To expose them?" Jenna's voice faltered as doubt flickered on her face. "What if it puts us in danger?" That question loomed like a shadow over Ava, and for a moment, indecision crept into her determination. Fear had its place, but she found herself realizing that this could be more than a reckless pursuit. It could be a necessity. The world thrived on weakness, but they could handle it. She could handle it. Before Ava could respond, a noise broke through the air, footsteps crunching on gravel beyond the garden. The illusion of safety shattered. They didn't have much time. One choice would shape her destiny: take action or shrink back into complacency. "Whoever that is, we need to move," Ava urged, urgency sharpening her voice. "Let's find somewhere to regroup, study this, and decide what to do next." With resolve settling in her heart, they ducked further into the foliage, a hidden world now brimming with possibilities. The ledger, grasped tightly in her hands, felt alive with potential for transformative truths, yet a storm of chaotic outcomes lurked just beyond their threshold. As the footsteps receded, a more profound question emerged within her. What happens when the quest for truth starts revealing not just the estate's secrets, but the hidden parts of herself as well? The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: this journey would redefine who she was and what she was capable of confronting. Before her heart could calm, another sound sliced through the air, one she knew all too well. Fear echoed in voices now close and insistent, demanding answers. Ava exchanged alarmed glances with Jenna, and in that moment they realized they were not merely running, but stepping boldly into a new reality, one where bounds would be tested and revelations awaited. The time had come to face what lay ahead, and a chilling realization crept in. Who among them would pay the price? The dense foliage engulfed them, muffling the world outside and cocooning them in their own quiet panic. Ava's heart raced, transitioning from the immediate urgency of flight into the pressing need for clarity. The ledger weighed in her hands like a pulse of potential, urging her to unravel its mysteries while the cacophony of hushed voices drifted nearer. Jenna crouched beside her, peering over her shoulder at the battered pages. "What if it's worse than we think?" she murmured, dread underscoring the question. The uncertainty settled heavily in the air, thick and suffocating, as pulses of doubt flickered in Ava's mind. "It might be," Ava admitted, her voice low yet resolute. They had stumbled upon something pivotal, and Ava felt the shift within herself. The quiet girl who dwindled in the shadows of others was slowly morphing into someone determined to confront the dark corners of the estate, a transformation that both excited and terrified her. With a breath that steadied her resolve, Ava flipped back to the list of names. This wasn't merely a ledger, it was a network. Threads connecting people with secrets that could shatter lives. Each entry whispered complexity, revealing the interplay of greed, betrayal, and the insatiable hunger for power. "What if we structured everything?" Ava proposed, an idea igniting as her mind raced. "We could map out these relationships, find connections. There's more here than just the names." Jenna's brows furrowed, her eyes narrowing at the thought. "What if they catch us? We might end up in even deeper trouble." The fear was palpable in her voice, threading through their proximity as tension cracked like static. "You're right," Ava responded, recognizing the grave danger they faced. But she also understood that confrontation was her only path forward. The stakes had risen, and the exhilaration of discovery coursed through her streets of doubt. "But if we don't expose this, will anything change? Will we allow this to continue?" The resolve in her words drew Jenna's gaze, and for a moment their connection crystallized into something unshakable. They were venturing into dangerous terrain, but Ava recognized her growing desire to wield the power of the knowledge they had found. She could no longer stand by, allowing others' wrongdoings to persist, while she remained an outsider. Regardless of the outcome, the reflection of courage fluttered within her, pushing her forward. As the voices encroached upon their hiding spot, preparing to step into action became imperative. Ava tucked the ledger tightly to her chest, whispering, "We regroup at my place. We look for every possible angle. Together, we can piece this together." Reluctantly, Jenna nodded, her breathing still shaky, but her resolve hardening in tandem with Ava's. They were not just two frightened girls. They were agents of change. It was that shared understanding that propelled them further, away from the safety of the garden and toward the unfamiliar complexities of truth. Navigating through the maze of hedges, they infiltrated the next stretch of the estate, moving silently while thoughts swirled. Ava's mind, once filled with doubt, now churned with strategy. She envisioned putting pieces together, revealing the duplicity that festered like an open wound within the layers of privilege, and she found self-assurance in that image. "Did your mom keep any records from her time here?" Ava asked, feeling bold in her questioning. The memory of Jenna's mother, once a trailblazer as the estate's first maid, emerged in her mind. "Maybe," Jenna said slowly, caught up in contemplation. "She kept a lot of things hidden, but I never thought to ask about it." "Then we need to dig deeper," Ava pressed. "There might be context in her records that will illuminate this ledger." The urgency entwined with revelations seemed infinite, drawing them toward a horizon filled with challenges, yet also with unforeseen strengths. They were not merely navigating the estate, but traversing the landscape of their abilities, an intricate tapestry grounded in courage. The world outside felt distant as they plunged deeper into their planning, but the voices erupted once more, clear and much closer. Ava's heart raced again, not just from fear, but from conviction. What awaited them on the other side of this journey was more than just truth. It was the potential for transformation, not just of the estate's secrets, but of their very selves. Just as they prepared to turn the corner into the main path, a shadow loomed in their periphery, an ominous figure, watching them with intent. Ava's breath hitched as she registered the man's features, dread wrapping around her. "It's time to confront the darkness," she thought, unease melding with a fierce determination. But would she have the strength to face it head-on? Ava stood firm, the ledger clutched tightly in her hands, as the shadowy figure veered into their path. It was Mr. Hathaway, his gaze cold and piercing, like a predator silently assessing its prey. The moment stretched as unspoken tension filled the air, the weight of their confrontation settling like lead on Ava's chest. "Tell me you didn't take that," he demanded, a low growl emanating from him like a dark storm approaching. Ava could sense the anger swirling beneath his facade, a volcanic eruption waiting to burst forth. Yet, as she looked into his eyes, fear was overtaken by a newfound strength, coaxed into existence by the very act of defiance she had undertaken. "I did," she proclaimed, her voice steady, "and I'll find out the truth about Lila. You might think you can protect your secrets, but I refuse to be a pawn in your game any longer." Mr. Hathaway stepped closer, the threat of his stature immediately palpable. But instead of recoiling, Ava stood her ground, feeling the roots of courage digging into the floor beneath her, propelling her beyond the confines of her previous identity. She snapped the ledger open, revealing the names and connections she had started to piece together, each mark echoing power and held potential. "You have no idea what you're meddling with," he warned, the tension coiling tighter around them. But Ava saw a flicker of anxiety in his expression, a crack in the armor he had so meticulously constructed. "No, it's you who doesn't realize the power of truth," Ava responded, her voice gaining warmth with confidence. "This ledger reveals links to atrocities, to lives cast aside for the sake of affluence. You think you can silence me, but it will only make my voice roar louder." Recognition flickered in Mr. Hathaway's eyes as he wrestled with the gravity of her words. Perhaps he'd underestimated her journey. This wasn't a battle of wills, but the emergence of an undeniable force igniting within Ava, a force hungry for justice, entwined with her own salvation. "Just understand that unraveling what has been hidden can come with dire consequences," he cautioned, though the tension had shifted. "I understand," she countered, gathering every ounce of vitality surging through her veins. "But if this path costs me everything, I will proudly walk it, not only for Lila, but for anyone who's been crushed under the weight of silence." His eyes narrowed as a realization dawned upon him. Ava had crossed a threshold, stepping away from shadows with an audacity that bewildered him. He could no longer dismiss her. "You really are a foolish girl," he sneered. But beneath his bravado lay a trace of fear. The power of her words disarmed him. She could see that he was beginning to grasp that the stakes were higher than he thought. "I'm not a girl anymore, Mr. Hathaway," she shot back, that invisible shift within herself echoing fiercely in her tone. "I'm a woman, determined to rewrite my story. A woman ready to reclaim what's been lost. What will you do about it?" At that moment, Ava felt the ground beneath her feet transforming. Lila had given her strength. Her tale was unfolding, and it mattered. Threads of connection coalesced into a web of truth that was igniting unrest beyond her wildest dreams. Mr. Hathaway's facade cracked further as he glanced between Ava and Jenna, who watched with intent, their alliance firm, even if fear simmered just beneath the surface. "Your little revolt might just be the last mistake you ever make," he warned, but the shadows of power were morphing around him. The iron grip of control he once held was slipping, replaced by the dawning realization that Ava was not an entity to be ignored or belittled. Jenna stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. "We want answers, and if you won't give them willingly, we'll pry them out of the shield you've built." Mr. Hathaway straightened, his poise reverting to one of authority. "You think you can achieve anything with your quaint aspirations and half-baked plans? You have no idea what you're messing with." A smirk played across Ava's lips, eagerness punctuating her words. "On the contrary, I know exactly what I'm unraveling, a deception far greater than you can fathom, and now I have the means to do it." Before Mr. Hathaway could retaliate, Ava pressed onward, feeling the fire raging within her. "This is not the end for us. It's just the beginning. We are no longer just shadows in this mansion. We are taking back our stories, armed with the truth, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. With newfound resolve, Ava turned on her heels, Jenna following suit, their combined energies surging into the unknown. They left the moment behind, the weight of the ledger significant as they moved forward, together, embedded with purpose and strength beyond measure. Ava understood that there would be ramifications, tangible consequences to their unyielding pursuit of the truth. However, basking in her clear sense of purpose, she felt light as her own spirit unshackled. Later in her room, surrounded by whispers of history and dreams that had long been deferred, Ava examined the ledger more closely. The ink unfurled perils and insights, yet beneath the fear thrummed a rhythm of hope. Piece by piece, she would uncover the narrative frozen in time. Even as the shadows from the estate loomed large, she felt her essence glowing brighter, and for the first time she embraced every thread of her identity. Ava had evolved, metamorphosed into her truest self, a vessel prepared to unleash a torrent of clarity on a world yearning for liberation. Together, they would redefine what power meant, and in the process, reshape their fates along the way. The winds of change were beckoning. Ava could hear Lila's spirit intertwining with her own, whispering encouragement from the edges of memories long obscured. The journey towards truth and reclamation had begun, and she was finally equipped with the weapons necessary for its pursuit. From within emerged a single resolve. She would not just dream of transformation, she would become it. And in the face of the storms ahead, Ava stood unwavering, determined to reclaim her voice, to claim this opportunity, and to etch her legacy into the annals of truth. The time for action was now. As Ava closed her eyes and took a deep breath, she knew what awaited her was not simply the pursuit of former truths. It was the affirmation of her existence, an adventurous odyssey defined by courage, love, and the relentless quest for justice. You need to subscribe now to witness this journey unfold. Leave a like now to fuel that algorithm. Your support matters more than you know. Comment your thoughts and theories about Ava's transformation and what lies ahead. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who could use this empowering story in their lives. Don't wait even one more second to share. Your actions define the stories we create together.